Hey guys, we are live on Facebook. We are live on LinkedIn. We are live on YouTube. Guys, welcome back to VM Nation. This is going to be an amazing episode. If you ever wanted to become a millionaire, this is the show you need to listen to. My friend Michael is going to be dropping some bombs about how you can create seven figures in 2022. But first, I want to thank our sponsors. As you know, my sponsors are 100% veterans, 100% of the time. I want to thank Kurt Ballish of Ballish Woodworks. Makes the most amazing woodworks for your house. My wife actually got a cutting board for Mother's Day, and it's the only one she will use. So you guys are amazing. And also, we know when people become successful, a lot of them become hoarders, and then they start living in the hoard. So, guys, Tammy Moses from the Hoarding Solution is helping families struggling with the hoarding issues. So she's changing the world one home at a time. Definitely check them out. Now, guys, if you want to hit seven figures like I plan on doing in 2022, this is the episode you need to listen to. My friend Michael is going to be dropping some serious knowledge bombs. What's up, brother?
What's up, bro? Thank you so much for having me, man. You're putting a lot of pressure on me, but I love some pressure. So let's get it. Hopefully I live up to the hype and the standard of which you set on your show. By the way, I love your show. I haven't stopped listening to it. I think I listened to every episode the last 24 hours. It's been amazing. So love what you're doing.
Well, diamonds are made from pressure. So, so tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, where you grew up, what kind of little boy were you, and tell us and bring us up to the present.
Oh, thank you. Great question. I was a troublemaker. I was a punk of a little kid. I was a troublemaker until I was 20. Then I figured out I couldn't be a troublemaker no more. All right. So, man, I originally come from New York City. That's where I was born. Moved around Massapequa to Queens, right? So that's Long Island to Queens. I'm the youngest of six, three older brothers, two older sisters. My family is a family that served. Right? I think like almost every brother, every male in our family served almost, I think. I'm one of the ones that didn't. I say my family, all my brothers served the country, and my dad served the country, and I served time. Right. But what happened was now I serve them when they come back. So that's a long story. But I grew up and I thought I had like the life, right? Like I didn't have it hard. I didn't have to have it. I always say I didn't have to have it hard. I picked to have it hard, right? Like that shows how dumb I am. Right. And everything was like, we were like the Leave It to Beavers, man, until I was like 10 years old. And my brother became one of the 22 that served the country and took his own life. And the impact that had on my family and us as individuals, it just, I don't know if there was coming back from that, what coming back looked like. All right. So from then, us men, we weren't taught we were hurt. We were taught we were mad. Right. So then from 10 to damn near 30, I lived angry. Right. But to 20, I couldn't express myself. I couldn't express what I felt. Right. So I wanted people to feel me. Right. Because you always want to be seen, heard, or felt. And I felt like I wasn't any of them. So I got into trouble. I got into fights, got into bad crowds, rough areas, did things that weren't very smart. At 20 years old, I was facing 20 plus years. My last court case, I got shot at and I found out I was having a daughter. And because that last one, I lost my pops when I was a teenager. And because that last one, I said I didn't want to be dead or in jail for my daughter. So that was the time I decided I was done. And I left the Northeast area, New York, Pennsylvania, and I moved to Delaware, the only state that ends in where. So I figured if you got in trouble in Delaware, you earned it. All right. So, I went straight and narrow, opened some businesses. I've been an entrepreneur since I was born with that kind of mindset of like try to figure out, scheme and hustle, figure out your way. Turn that very legal and legit focused in 2017. When I was 17 years old, I opened my first legit business at A&M Accessories and More. Right, and from there, literally since then, for 20 plus years, I've had a business or been in business.
Now, your story reminds me of a friend of mine, Zach Babcock.
Yeah, I know Zach.
He went through some rough times. Did the whole jail
Great
thing.
Story.
So now, talk to us because I'm from Jersey, and a lot of people don't realize how tough Jersey and New York City streets are. So what was it like growing up in the city and trying
So I
to
would
make your,
say, right,
what was it
and
like?
like you're so right, right? Like I don't think if you didn't come from an area like that, you don't understand areas like that. And I always tell people, like, when I was in Pennsylvania, New York, Jersey, because I bounced around, right? Wherever you were, trouble found you. Like, you didn't have to go looking. Like, there's some of the biggest times I got in trouble. We were sitting doing nothing, right? Like, or we were hanging out on a porch or a stoop, right? Or we were hanging out at a local eatery, right? Like a local restaurant or bar, right? Like, I wasn't even 21. I got in most of my trouble. So it wasn't like I was hanging out at a lot of bars. Right? It was just when you grow up, and especially my brothers, like my older brothers, they had reputations, so their reputations fell on me too, right? So before I was even in a room, people knew of the Fabbers, right, and like knew some of the things that my brothers did, and then I was automatically them too, right? So then you have to live up to that reputation, or people are going to test it, right? And so when you grow up with that mindset and in that environment, when you don't know the other options, you think that's the only one. And when you think that's your only option, you're going to go hard as you can for that option because you don't want to, right? Like you don't want to suck. You don't want to be the weak one. You don't want to be the one that's ridiculed or made fun of or ran out, right? So it's almost like you got to pick, like what's going to happen. And that's why I always said, like, there was a bunch of people I knew that were willing to stand, fight, and suffer whatever consequences from, because that's what we believed, right? And that's where we were in our mindset. That's what made us men. Right now, it's crazy now to say that, and I know how wrong or like misdirectioned I was, but at the time, you think that's the only way.
All right, so now I got a question because I got arrested and I was looking at 5 years for grand larceny. And thank God that the guy that I robbed was a police officer, matter of fact. And he kind of knew that if I went to jail at 20 years old, I was going to be somebody's bitch. And so he saved my ass. So, what was it like walking into jail and the first time that those doors actually closed on you?
Right? Well, I got lucky. I never did too much hard time. Guys like Zach and Bobby and those guys, they had it worse than me, 100%. Um, but listen, it's a little terrifying if you're honest, right? Like if I'm being complete with you, and I will, um, like that was scary to the point where, because it was unknown, right? Like all you hear is stories, right? All you hear is rumors. All you see is movies. You see TV shows. That's what you think it is every day, right? Like you gotta do things every day to protect yourself or your people, or like, and um, so when you went in, the mindset of it was worse than the actual being of it, right? So unfortunately, for some reason, that wasn't eye opening enough for me. Isn't that weird? Right? Like I'm like, how slow and stupid was I? Right? Like that. It took more than that. Right? Like I always say, rock bottom isn't it's not a measurable depth. Rock bottom. Rock bottom is whenever you determine it is, and that's why we all have different rock bottoms. And my rock bottom wasn't a jail cell. Right? It wasn't being locked up. It wasn't being in court. Like it wasn't facing more time. Like it wasn't that. My rock bottom was two times in my life. First time was when I found out I was going to have a daughter. And I was just like, is this the kind of person I want my daughter to be around? And the answer was no, right? Like I wasn't a good enough person to raise a kid, right? So I was just like, oh man, I got to change. I got to do something. And then the second time was 2011 when one of my best friends took his own life. And I realized I was just a fake POS, and I was all about material and money and nothing that of real substance. And I didn't want to be that person anymore.
All right. Now, for me, I believe the three most important words in English language are "today I decide," because we're all about our decisions. We're all about the next decision. So, once you made the decision to change that in 2011, what was your first steps to change? Because we can always make a decision to change, but if we don't put action behind it, behind our thoughts, then we're never going to change. So
Right.
so what did you do?
Right. So I love that, because when one is just talk and the other one's commitment. right? And that's why I'm like, I don't worry so much about what people say. I do worry a whole lot about what their commitment level is to something, right? And the first thing I did was, I believe everything goes inside out, right? So the first thing I had to do was figure out me, because it's like that ownership thing. I was the problem, right? So I had to figure myself out. And then first I listened to that dumb stuff where they're like, go find yourself. Like I was like running or hiding out there somewhere and I just had to go catch me, right? And I did some dumb things trying to figure out who I was or what I was about. And it led me to a stoop in Alabama. And I don't, no disrespect to Alabama, but Mobile, Alabama, the Mobile Inn back in that time, not a nice place, right? And I was sitting on this like stoop thing. And I was just sitting there thinking like, did I ever make anyone's life easier, right? A basketball coach once asked me, Coach Darby asked me, he's like, did anyone breathe easier because you existed? Right? And I was like, damn near 30. And the answer was no. And I was like, holy mackerel, right? Like, look at all the time I've wasted. Like, there's people that love me, supported me, and backed me through everything, right? Like, my mom backed me through everything. She shouldn't have, right? I didn't deserve to earn it. And look how I was acting, look how I was treating. The best thing about me, if anything happened to me, was my bank account. Like, what kind of minuscule life is that? Right? Because I know we have all lost people. And when we lost them, was our first thing goes, man, I wonder what's in their bank account. Hopefully it was never the question, right? So I realized I was living a pointless life, and wow, like that's my legacy. That's what I'm leaving for the next. That's what I'm leaving for my daughter, her kids, their kids. And so I started working on me and started asking. There's two things people say all the time. One drives me crazy. They say your life is measured by the questions you ask yourself, and I think that is incorrect. I'm not saying the questions you ask yourself are not important. They are huge, but the ability you have to answer the question is more important, right? Because I was asking good questions, but I didn't have the understanding to answer them right? To answer them properly or to answer them at the max level at which I could have. I didn't know, right? So a great question with no knowledge is pointless. So I had to get here right to be able to do this right. And then I saw like what I wanted, what made my heart leap, what I felt joy doing, fulfillment doing. I had to answer and go through some of the pain that I hid for years and years and years and years and years, right? And then I saw that like I want to help people, I want to serve people, I want all of us to live this. I don't want to make it to this destination by myself, right? Like I want to make it to the destination with our people. So I'm going to help and serve people to get to that destination, so we get there together. Because that's more enjoyment. That's fulfillment for me. That's joy.
And I love people that have heart of service. Like I say all the time, what good is it to have the big house, the big car, the boat, and then you come home to an empty kitchen table?
Yes, sir.
That for me, that's not success. For me. So what did you do? What were some of your steps? What kind of jobs did you take? How did you change your career from 2001 to 2011? What did you do differently?
Oh, well, 2001, 2011, I opened a bunch. We had a restaurant, bar, a gift basket company, a landscape company, a property management company, an investment company, right? Like I opened a bunch of businesses, right? I love business, right? Like I love the idea of it, right? Like I love the concept. I love working. I love serving people and figuring out how to add more value and how to create offers and market yourself and messaging and the impact you can have doing that. I love that, right? But so then it was like 2011. It was how can I use that and help others while doing it, right? Rather than help myself, how can I help others, right? So I didn't know how to do that, right? So the first thing I did was I wanted to help people, so I started holding doors for people. Right? Because I didn't know how to help them better. But in 2011, I walked into one of my best friend's house, Alex McClure, and I said, yo, we're going to change the world. And he said, are you high? Right? And I was like, what? No, right? Like, this is the most sober I've ever been. But we're going to change the world. Right? And he was like, man, people like us, we don't change the world. Like, that doesn't happen. I was like, that's exactly who changes the world. He's like, well, how are we going to do it? I said, one person at a time. Right? Because I had no idea at that time. Right? I was just like, this is an idea. Let's run. Right? And, so I started learning. I love human behavior, right? I love neuroscience. Like that's my jam, right? How people react and why we react, right? I think is huge. If we can understand that, we can understand how to communicate and connect with people in a way. that can make us influence them and them influence us, right? And that's how we share each other's goal, like our art, right? Like our gift. That's how we share it. We have to be able to connect at a level to share it, right? It's like you bringing me here, right, on the show. You brought me to a level where I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to connect with this dude and share each other's gifts, right? Because that's the whole point of the gift, is to be given.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to learn how to, right? So first I was like, yo, I just want to help people. And I took over the nonprofit my mom started in honor of my brother, JPFMF. And we started serving people in multiple ways from, we literally from like 3 years old prep, like we gave a prep package to preschoolers, which was promote reading and enthusiasm. All right. And why is because we understand a lot of our self-worth comes to our early education. And if we can create better self-worth, that'll create less drug use, less bullying, less self-injurious behavior, and less suicide, right? So if we can start addressing that early, we can start fixing it late, right? So I'd rather address it so we cure it than fix it later, because it's harder to fix later, right? So we worked with servicemen and women when they came back for mental health issues to getting back into society. We worked with literally, if you name them, from 3 years old to we had clients at 90 years old. We do grief and loss. We do scholarships. We do trainings. It's like any way we could help, we were trying to help there, right? Nonprofit, bing, 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 right? And we still have that. The JPFMF still runs, and it's completely a nonprofit. There's not a salary paid within the nonprofit. It is 100% goes to cause.
Now, what is it? What does the acronym stand for?
Joseph Patrick Fabber Memorial Foundation.
Okay.
Right, because that was my brother that passed.
So if you got when we hop off, and this goes out eventually on the podcast too, I want you to send me those links. This way people can get involved and also help out with
thank
your.
you. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you. All right. And because that was the only way I knew how to help, right? So we would do fundraisers, so we would create more buzz about us and revenue coming in so we could pass it out and do more, right? We serve Thanksgiving meals. We adopt families at Christmas, right? Like we do EGALA, which is equine assistant therapy, right? So, I mean, we're all over the map with it, but that's how we knew how to help immediately, right? Then I started growing myself, and I was like, what skills do I have? And one of my buddies was like, Mike, you've been in business so long, you understand business and marketing and what sales really is. Like, why don't you help people do that? Because we want to impact 1 billion people. Because if we impact 1 billion people, then you can stop suicides, right? Because the ripple effect of that will go to the 7.8, which will be 8 soon, right? So we know that. So we're like, all right, cool. How can we do that? I tried to do it one by one. I think I had like 400 in a year. You know what I'm saying? I would have to live to 1 million. Right? So I'm like, all right, so that's not going to work. So how can we empower others that are empowering others? And that's how it works. So I had to figure out the people that were so passionate about what they do but didn't understand business, how I could show them how to do business so they could be passionate while also making enough to no longer live the life they want but serve who they want. And so I went to a million trainings for coaching because I'm like the coach hater. They call me, even though I'm in the coaching space. It's because I feel like there's a lot of frauds in the coaching space. So it's like with us, let's call a spade a spade. I'm going to be very honest. There are people, I love the meme that says, I didn't eat the brownie this morning. I guess I'm a health coach. All right. And so I just started working, right? Building in here first to do out here. And I got so hyped and I was ready. And I told my buddy, come with me. We're going to go help somebody. And we went to this diner. And there was a guy sitting at the counter. It was in Dover. It was the Hollywood Diner in Dover, Delaware. And the guy was sitting at the counter. I'm like, that's the guy I'm going to help. And I walked up to him. I'm like, sir, what's your biggest problem? And I'm going to solve it for you. Right? I'm young and dumb at this time, right? And I'm super hype. And the guy looks at me dead straight in the eyes and goes, you. And I go, all right, sir, thank you very much. And I walked away. And I told my buddy, I'm like, see, we already fixed one person's problem. Let's go. But that's how it started. And then it just kept growing and growing and figuring out. Because as you start down your journey, you start seeing further, right? Because you're going further down. Yeah. Right. So things become clearer to you. And so as I started walking, things started getting clearer to me. Oh, we could do this. We could do this. We could do these big events. We could do these small events. Like we could have this mastermind, right? Like we could do all these different things that we do. And that's how we can serve more and more and more and help them serve who they serve more and more and more.
Okay. Now I want to put out, we've been friends. We just became friends, and I'm very grateful for you. But unfortunately, when I become a friend of somebody, I become a creeper. I follow
on. I like it. I'm a creeper too.
I follow him on LinkedIn. I follow you on LinkedIn. I follow you on, Facebook, and you put out a post, and that's why I wanted you to come on today, about creating 100 millionaires in 2022. So
Yes,
I
sir.
want you to talk about that. And because, I've interviewed now even some billionaires. And the one billionaire that I talked to, he said, the only difference between a poor person and a billionaire, well, there's two of them. There's their mindset
Mm-hmm.
and their vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only difference. So talk to us about the millionaire mindset and how you're going to help 100 people become millionaires in 2022. And I'm going to be one of them, just throwing that
Let's
out there.
go. Let's go. I love that. And I love that you resonate with that post. And, yesterday I was just sitting there and we were talking about goals because no longer do we want to finish this year strong, but we also want to finish it in the direction in which we're going to go in 2022, right? You don't want to finish it in the wrong direction and have to make up. So they were like, we always have our company goals, right? And then they were like, Mike, what about what do you think? Like a goal that you want to do? And we always try to think of a goal that's, you always want to have a goal that's service-based, right? Serving somebody, people, right? It's one of your goals should always be that, because understand anything that you want yourself is going to come from serving others, right? It's, I forget who said it, T. Harv Eker, when he said, you get enough people to get or Dirk Diggler, you get enough people to get what they want, you're going to get what you want.
Yeah.
Right? So it was, I'm like, yo, listen, I know with that kind of reach, right? If you had $1 million, all it's going to do is magnify what's already there a million times, right? So no longer I want to make 100 millionaires. I want to help that. I want to guide them to do that. I want to help 100 millionaires that are people with a serving heart, that care about others, that want to do good for others, that want to make an impact in this world, leave a legacy that's above them, rather than live longer than them. That's who I look for. That's who I love to serve. Right? No offense. If you're like, I want a Lambo and I want to have an island and no one can get to me, I'm probably not the person to work with. Right? I'm not going to be your person. Right? That's cool, just not for me. Right? So I love what you said there about the two things. And I would say even you could almost put that all into one, and it's going to be mindset, because when your mindset changes, your language changes, your understanding changes. When this changes, everything changes. Right? This was the first thing I had to work on for me to change. And then everything else started changing, right? Because what you focus on grows, right? So the first thing we always work on in any of our programs is mindset, right? Because that's key. If you don't have it, it won't work, right? So we have to go through some of the things that are keeping us, holding us back, limited beliefs, right? Limited actions, because beliefs, the science momentum, right? Your belief leads to action. Action leads to result. Result makes you believe your potential. Your potential affects your belief, and it just keeps going, right? In this vicious cycle. So we have to get this thing to be a machine where it's what do we typically say? Oh, I can't do that. Look at all the stuff I've been through. All right, I can't do this. Look at all the stuff that's happened to me. Rather than saying I can do this because all the stuff that's happened to me. I should be here because all the things I went through. Right? And it's that shift where our story becomes our superpower. Our story becomes our strength. It's our greatest asset. No one went through what we went through, when we went through it, how we went through it. Nobody but us. Right? That's our strength. So the more we can turn that to become our strength and not our limited belief, the more likely we are to be able to achieve and do things. Because then after we see it's possible, we learn how. We don't learn how before.
Yep. And studying a gentleman that I've become acquainted with. His name is Tim S. Grover. And he put out a book called Relentless. And it talks about the mindset of Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, that there was no doubt when they stepped on the court what they were going to do, because their mindset started at home when they were getting dressed for the game. And I think a lot of people, that, especially in the business, they kind of just, I'll be successful, I might make a certain amount, but they don't want to be the best. They don't have the drive. They don't have, you know what I'm saying? They just don't have that oomph. They don't have the black Mamba mentality. And unfortunately, or fortunately for people like us, people like Zach, we don't look like everybody else. We don't look like the guys like Tony Robbins in a suit. But when we show up and we're all tatted up and we show up in jeans and a t-shirt, and people know they're not like everybody else. They have that black Mamba mindset. I think that's a way that we can actually stand above the crowd. What are your thoughts?
100%. Listen, all that tells me is that this is why I love that, because it tells me you're good being you, right? And that's huge. If you're not good being you, right? Like if you need the Rolex and the suit to feel something, there's a problem, right? Because I'm me. I feel me every day. Like I feel like me all the time, right? And I'm gonna be me all the time. I used to wear all the suits and stuff, but that's when I was trying to be something, right? I don't try to be me. I'm just me, right? So I stopped wearing the suits. I don't have a Rolex anymore, right? Like I stopped all that because it wasn't important. If the best thing about me is what I'm wearing, stay away from me, right? Because there's no substance. So I 100% agree, and I think the tide's actually turning more and more towards the just show up real, like show up. There's a guy named Adam Lampman. He says this line, I loved it. He said, "Show up as the most accurate you." Right, and I just thought that was a dope line. Just show up as the most accurate you, because then, the people that are meant to love you and like you and follow you and listen to you, right, are going to, and the people that aren't, and that's what we want. Like that's all we want in life. If we're cool, let's be cool, let's rock. If we're not, let's stay away from each other and just do our thing. Right. So I love that line. I think you're 100% right. I think the space is changing more and more to being more real as you, and less that polished image that we have to pretend this to act. This is our life. And you see Tony Robbins now, less suits, right? Dean Graziosi, less suits, right? And you see guys like Eric Thomas and Trent Shelton and guys like ourselves that are making more noise in the space and being more visible in the space, and Gary V's that don't wear suits, right? Like they're not the suit toping. We're at this level, and you guys need to come to this level and look at us. We're at this level. No, we're just like we know what we can do. We know what we bring to the table, and that's where we're going to show our value, not by what outfit I'm wearing.
And I think something you just said really resonated with me. We know what we bring to the table, and we're not afraid to eat alone.
Yeah, right, 100%.
You know what I'm saying? So what do you say to the people out there that they're ready to make that switch, but they don't know how? What is a way that you can go from having a mediocre mentality to the millionaire mindset mentality? What are some steps, actionable steps?
Right. That's a great question. There's so many, right? I would start with this. Let's get real clear, right? Clarity is key, right? So let's get real clear, and let's be very honest with ourselves, right? This is one of the things, either we're way too hard or we're way too comfortable. Like we try to make it too much like clouds and rainbows, or we try to make it too much like dire. All right, let's be very real in the space. Let's get real clarity so we know where we want to go. Because when we see a better target, we know how to hit a better target, right? It's harder to hit a target you can't see. Right? So let's go and get big clarity, and let's start with where are we exactly in the areas of our life that mean something to us. So what I mean by that is like, where are we with our wealth, right? And then let's get real detailed. Bank account, what is it at? Right? Cash at hand, what is it at? Assets, what is it? Right? Like let's debt, what is it? Credit cards, what is it? Right? Like let's get real clear on everything. Let's write it out, right? Let's put it on paper. Where are we? Boom. This is our starting line, right? So now we know where we're starting. All right. So we know where we're shooting from. Now, next step, what do we want? What do we want our wealth to look like? What do we want our relationships to look like? Right? Like, what do we want our health to look like? What do we want that to be? Now, write those down, right? And individualize them, right? I want to be able to run this fast, this long, right? Like whatever it is, I want to be able to lift this amount in this workout, right? Like if that's your thing. If it's not, I want to get out of bed without losing my breath, right? Like whatever it is, right? Let's be detailed and clear on what it is. So let's know where we're starting and know where we're ending, right? Because now we have a start and finish, and now we can connect dots, right? So now what's progress? Like what's an action step? I want to lift 100 pounds. Well, first I have to be able to lift 10. Right? So let's put 10 pounds, then 20, right? 25, 30, 40, 50, right? And then, so now we can start connecting dots and get closer to our goal. The more we can measure something, the more we can manage it, right? And noticing progress is huge for wins. Because if we don't notice progress, we feel struggle, like we're not getting closer. So we have to be able to identify wins, right? So then we can connect the dots. Now that we have dots and we know where we're going, we know where we're starting, we know where we're ending, and we have these steps now, we have these achievement stones that we know we can celebrate, what's the first step you got to take, right? So the first step for my health, I might be have to get in the gym. I might be have to walk around town, right? I might have to put down the sweets. Whatever it is, what's the first step, right? So now you got crystal clear where you are, where you're going, the steps in between, and you know the first thing you got to do. So now it's on you, right? So if you want to be a millionaire, cool. First, let's start. Where are we? I'm 50,000 in debt, or I have 200,000, whatever it is. All right, cool. Now you know your starting point, and you know where a million is. Now, here's the one thing I would warn you: if you want to be a millionaire, don't aim for $1 million, all right? Because that's the first thing I did, and I made $1 million and lost it. Right? So I would say aim for something higher than $1 million, right? You want to be a millionaire, so let's have multiple millions, all right, and have $1 million as an achievement stone. Because the problem is sometimes we make a target and then we hit it, and if there's nothing after that target, what's next? All right. So continually having a target is, I think, something key too. But definitely have that start and that finish, the achievement stones along the way, and the first step to take, because then you start going towards. And again, when we start going towards something, we start seeing it clearer. And then the clearer we see it, the more we know how what we need to do, what we need to grow, or who we need to get for it.
Now, something that you said, that, well, two things you actually said, one good thing about, when I became blind, I actually get to listen to what a person's saying and actually soak it all in. And one thing you said was, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, that even if you have a small win, make sure you celebrate that small win. Because then, like the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, you're just stacking. You're stacking habits, you're stacking wins, and eventually your wins are going to go up. So I love that. And then the second thing, a lot of people don't realize, like my friend Gary Vaynerchuk says, you have to enjoy the process, or else, because that's what it's all about. It's all about the process. He wants to buy the jets, but he's enjoying the process building to be able to buy the jets. So what are your thoughts on celebrating your wins and also enjoying the process that you're in?
Right. I love that you said that. And also I love Gary Vee to buy the Jets. That's hilarious, right? I'm always like, you could buy a better team. Right. Sorry, that's an old knock from New York. So one, I think they're both crucial, right? Like first, identifying wins and celebrating wins, I think are crucial to your mindset, right? Because what's human behavior? If we feel pain from something, we don't want to do it. If we feel joy from something, we want it more, right? So we have to figure out how can we get this thing to operate as a way as what we would become if we don't do this thing will be painful. And by doing it, I feel joy because that's going to get me wins. It's going to get me to those points where I get to celebrate my people with what I love, right? Like, so we have celebrations, like we have moments of celebrate, like the things our achievement stones, we actually celebrate as a team. All right. And there's things that we get when we celebrate that we're like, yes, like if some of our guys love sushi, so they get this great sushi place we have when we have our like we win, let's go. Like, and it creates that mindset of let's go get this because we want this. It brings us joy. And if we don't, what's the pain from doing it? Right. And I think that we have to be able to work that because understand that our whole feature, like how we operate our operating system as human beings is pain and pleasure, right? For the most part, we try to avoid pain and try to get pleasure. Pain comes first, pleasure comes second. So if we know that, then we have to operate this in a way and make it understand that if we don't do these things, the pain we're going to feel is worse than the pain of doing it. All right. It's like, I don't want to be this person that does not work out or take care of my health in 5 years from now, because that's going to be hospital bills, battles, death, right? Like these things and I have things I need to wring out my towel more, right? So that's more painful to me, not being able to walk my daughter down the aisle than walking around the town I live in.
Yeah.
Right. So it's first part is create that. The second thing is a question I ask like everyone that I work with, associate with, and any client that we have is that do you love what you do, and do you love what you do to the point where you want to put more time into it than anyone ever has? And it's because if you're willing to do that, we got a good shot. Right? If you're not, we might not have a good shot.
Mm.
All right. So it's like, are you willing to put more time in than anyone ever has into what you love? The things I love, I'm willing to put more time in than anyone ever has. Right? The people I love, I'm willing to give them more time than anyone ever has. Right? Like the areas that I serve in, I'm willing to give it more time than anyone ever has. Right? I don't get caught up in the best, greatest, right? Like that's all perspective. Right? Some people think Michael Jackson was amazing. Some people think he was awful. Right? So it doesn't matter. Right? Like that's perspective. But time isn't. That's a measurable thing. Right? So we can know how much time we put into something. So if you're willing to put more in than anyone ever has, you're probably going to enjoy the process of doing it. If you're not, then you probably won't.
Now, talking about,
okay.
I love that, because I'm a big, I'm a big mindset guy. I'm always studying. I'm always reading. I'm always learning.
Love it.
And, I forget who said it. I think it was Dale Carnegie. I mean, we're going back to the early 1900s. That consistency will always trump intensity over the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us about, because there's some people, we all know, because I was at GNC for 30 years, January 1st is going to be our biggest day of the year. People are just going to come and spend buku bucks, and, the gyms are going to be packed. And then come April, the gyms are empty. The stores are back to normal because everybody starts that diet resolution, but they're not consistent. They're just have intensity for about a week, and then they fall off. So talk to us about intensity and consistency.
Right. It's funny you bring that up. I talk about this often. One, I always say like a New Year's resolution is like one of the worst things that can happen. Not creating a goal, that's a great thing. But we create it and then a year later we check it. Like that means we have 365 days to get that far off course. Right. I'm like, make that goal, but check that thing daily. Right. Because it's like when the Vikings sailed west, they used a sundial and they checked it every day at noon to know how far they went off course so they could course correct quicker. Right. So they didn't just get lost at sea. So like that's my idea. Like how can we course correct quicker? Right. How can we check more, right? Because the more we can measure something, the more we can manage it. The more we can manage, the more we can stay on task. Right. And it's like, and you'll know this just like I do, right? In the space we're in, people come in like a flash. There are people that every year do something bigger than me every year. Right. And then 2 years later, you don't hear from them and they're out of business. Right. Why? It's because they weren't willing to show up every day like you are. Right. They weren't willing to do this all the time. Right. They weren't willing to do this every day, every week, every month. They weren't willing to do these things. They weren't willing to put it in. And when you're not willing to put it in, you're not going to get the result consistently, right? Like that's why consistency is key. So you get the result consistently, right? And the more consistent you get results, you stack them. And that's the higher you go, right? So 100% consistency is key, right? Being able to measure yourself, to manage yourself and your goals is key to be able to keep on progress consistently, all right? Regularly, repeatedly, right? And it's like, I'm like the worst person for scheduling. Right, like literally today, I had a meeting before, meeting this with you. Now I have a meeting after. Right, like it's like meeting. I'm like worse with scheduling. I'm just like, yeah, sure, I'll talk to you today. Yeah, sure, I'll talk to you today. Yeah, sure. And then at the end of the day, I have 49 calls. I'm like, wow, right? But it's that, and everybody's like, Mike, you got to do this different. You got to do this better. But I'm like, but you don't understand. Being able to do this, being willing to do this, and having the consistency to do this has made us have progress that we've had. Right, it has took us from 2-3 people sitting in a shanty as an office to having our own office building where we rent out all of our offices and have a whole floor to ourselves, right? It took us from having 7 people show up at an event to having hundreds of people show up at an event, right? It's all because we've been consistent. It's all because we keep, you're going to hear this, a lot of the same thing. I'm not going to switch up on you. I'm not going to disappear, right? I'm going to stand on what we say and what we do. I'm going to stand on it every day. And I think that's the key to everything is consistency, because when you're consistent, you get to see what you need to work on. When you're consistent, your skills keep growing. When you're consistent, your relationships grow, right? Like when you're consistent, your bank account grows, right? Like all the things you want. When you're consistent, it grows, because even if you're not great at it to start, which none of us are, right? When you're consistent at it, you're going to get better, right? Like I wasn't very good when I first got in this, And I might not be very good now, but I'm still better than then.
And like they said, I'm a big sports guy, big sports freak. You got to put in the reps. And
Damn right.
if you're not putting in the reps, even like my friend John Lee Dumas, he's got like one of the top podcasts in the world.
Damn right.
He's got 100 million downloads, and a million downloads a month. But for 3 years straight, he did 7 shows a week. So he's been consistency, and he always says, you got to put in the reps. You're gonna suck. We all sucked. Even Tom Brady, when he got picked Mr. Irrelevant and pick 199, he had to start somewhere.
All right.
We all got to put in our reps. So now, how do we work with you? How can we get involved in this 100 millionaires in 2022?
Right. It's funny you brought that up, because I actually made a post this morning, and in the post I said, how many reps does it take to be a champion?
Where do you think I got it from?
Oh, look at you. Jeez, you do stalk well. I met a good competitor in a worthy adversary in this stalking world. Right? And for me, right, like one, I would say connect with me, right? We're not everybody's cup of tea. We're very real, raw. We're gonna come at you. We're gonna be very open and honest. We're not gonna BS the space. We're not gonna sugarcoat it. If you want to come in with rah rah shiskaba and like looking GQ and not having any substance, we're in the wrong crowd, right? Like if you're really about having a better life, serving people and making other people's lives better while making yours better, cool, hit me up. Right. And that, I would say, find me on social media, Michael Fabber, pretty much everywhere. I think Instagram's the only place where I'm like the coach Mike Fabber. Hit me up. I'll show you. We have websites for everything. I can show you all the different websites we have for what you're interested in, for what you're looking for. And really, I would say the thing I would not miss, and I would try to do it sooner rather than later to secure your spot, is the Nashville event, April 22nd and 23rd. Right now, it's extremely low for everything that's included. It's only going to be like that for, I think, 5 more days. And if you hit me up after you saw this show, even as a podcast, if you hit me up and just say the show's name, right, or Richard to me, I'll give it to you for that price, just because of the respect I have for Richard and what he does. All right, so hit me up whenever you hear this. If you hit me up and say Richard sent me, we'll give you the price that is right now. And listen, your hotel's included, the event's included. We have a celebrate Unleashed party during it. I always tell you we celebrate wins. Us all being together is a win. We have this amazing party. Crazy things are going to happen at it. You get different blueprints that we use to create our businesses that have worked for us, the principles, strategies, and tactics we use, right? Like, so it's a beautiful offer at a very low price. I would jump on that to see if you really resonate with us and see where you go from there.
All right, last question I have, and I ask 1,000 people and I get 1,000 different answers.
Yes,
but still now with this whole Omni Core, whatever the hell they call it, the new virus crap. Our amazing governors up in New York and New Jersey are probably going to put us back on lockdown again. So we have a lot of families that lost jobs, so they're driving Uber, they're driving DoorDash just to put food on the table. So if I ask the average American to do something in 7 days, they're pretty much never going to get to it. But if somebody's listening to this and I ask them to take an actionable step in the next 24 hours, they're more likely. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions because that's the kind of guy that you are. One, if somebody is struggling in their business, what can they do in the next 24 hours to start to get some help? And the second question I think is the most important. If somebody is struggling with their mental health, what is something they could do in the next 24 hours so they don't end up eating their gun?
Brother, that's 2 huge questions, right? If you're struggling in mental health, there's 2. So to take one's life, there's typically 3 pieces. One is to feel isolated, right? Like you're completely alone. No one gets it. No one understands. You wouldn't know, right? That's all the things I said. There's all the things I believed, right? No one understood what I was doing. No one believed, like no one gets this. No one lived this life. You wouldn't understand, right? And That's not true, right? You're not completely alone. Because yes, I might not know, I might not understand, but you're not alone. We're here, right? You're not alone. Like, you always got us. My phone number and my email are public, literally directly to me, not some BS SMS service, not some robot. Like, you literally can hit me up at any time of the day, because when I say you're not alone, I really mean it. I want to prove it. So I'm not one of those guys that say you're not alone and then say, hey, you can't talk to me though, right? Like, no, you can call me at any time, right? And then second thing is feel like a burden, right? Like, you're bringing the people you care about the most down, right? Like, you're weighing on them. And I promise you, even if you are weighing on somebody, right? Like, I'm not even going to say you're not, right? Because at times we all are. Even if you are, the weight of you here is better than the weight of you not. From my life experience, from understanding and living it, right? From seeing what it does, as from someone in the family to someone as a friend, to my own demons that I fought. The burden of you here is less than the burden of you not, right? So if you care about the burden you're putting on people, if that's your thing, understand you here is better, it's less, right? So, and then the third one is harm yourself beyond repair. That's the hardest one. It's our operating system is meant to protect us and save us. So when we do those things, it's we have to go against how we're wired. That last part we can't do anything about, but we can do about things making people feel isolated, make people feel like they're a burden. So I would say, if you're feeling like that, and then make the call, because here's the deal: the worst moments of my life have led to the best things in my life. Right? I'll say that again: the worst moments of my life have led to the best things in my life. The worst moments of my life have led to my purpose. Period, bar none. All right. So that's the first question. If anyone's at that point, stop. All right. Here's the deal: life isn't fair, but we can make it worth it. So let's make it worth it. All right. And then the last question you asked about business. All right. The last question you asked about business. What's one thing you can do right now is go back to the foundations. Normally, it's the beginning is the hard part. So go back and say, who are you serving, and identify them as best you can. What are their struggles right now? What are their pain points? What are their problems? What's the pressure they're feeling? What's their stressors? What's keeping them up at night? And then what's their goals? What's their dreams? What's the desires they try to get to? Things like that. I would say go all the way back to the foundation, because typically when something's wrong with your business, it's not the glitter and the glam. It's the foundation wasn't built strong enough to build more from where you are.
I love it. So, guys, you need to check out my brother, changing the game, and I'm very grateful that he's in my inner circle now, and I think we're going to be doing some great things together, guys. Also, if you're like me, if you like coffee, if you like high energy coffee, my coffee just hit the streets yesterday. Check out Vertical Momentum Coffee. If you don't want that Folgers in your cup, but you want something by Soldiers in your cup, definitely pick out Vertical Momentum coffee. If you like the swag, pick it up. All my proceeds go to help veterans that are struggling with mental health issues and homelessness. So I don't make any money off anything that I do. So I just want to throw it out there. Michael, brother, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for hanging on. And what was the name of your nonprofit again, and how do they get in touch with it?
JPFMF, and you can look that up on Facebook, internet, website, wherever you want, JPFMF, and let us know how we can serve you.
Definitely, especially that's got a big soft spot in my heart. I am a suicide survivor, so it's a big thing in my heart, and I will definitely put that out there. Guys, remember, vertical momentum, the only way to go is but up. See you next time.